Welcome back to the Bruce Poinsette Show. This is the B block where usually we try and keep it a little bit lighter, but since this is our last show before the May 17th primaries, I think it's important to have a little bit of a public service announcement. So, yeah, Ado, have you been keeping track of the upcoming elections at all?
A little bit. I've been talking about to my family about it because we usually sit down and just kind of chat about things as it's getting in. But I'm not too deeply well versed on all of the candidates. Still getting there, but I would love to hear more about it because I try to regularly vote, especially in local elections because those ones be moving differently.
Yeah, and that's a very important point. And, this idea, a lot of people hear vote local, and it kind of comes off as another cliche, but really it it's super important. But, for this case, I just want to make a little more of a general commentary and just put something out there for people because the closer we get to elections, it's also becomes political apathy season where you get the closer we get, the louder you hear some voices and voices that in a lot of cases I have a lot of respect for, relationships with, but it's people who are going to tell you, oh, politics doesn't matter. Oh, who cares? It's about this instead of that, or what about this? And those voices get louder and louder. And let's just be real, mistakes end up happening. you know, Very avoidable mistakes end up happening.
Yes.
I've talked about this in the past, but the city council race 2020, where you had someone who, maybe was not the perfect politician, none are, spoiler alert, but you had someone like Chloe Eudaly, who was a proven housing advocate, tenants' rights advocate, who somehow got defeated by Mingus Maps, who was endorsed and well known to be endorsed by the police union. And it's not that that's the most shocking thing. It's Portland, Oregon, after all. But it was the fact that you had a lot of progressive voices, a lot of people who specifically their lane is Black liberation, who somehow got behind Mingus Maps, where it was like, oh, this is so bad. This is so cartoonishly bad. What are we doing? And you'd think every election something like this happens, and you want to tell yourself, oh, that's people are going to learn their lessons. But then fast forward to spring of 2022, and I'm seeing the same. I'm seeing the same whataboutism. I'm seeing the same. This doesn't matter. The really just general lack of knowledge around what's happening in these primaries, and it's not a general election year, so the midterm elections this fall are not getting a super amount of attention, never mind the primaries in May. But it's just this apathy that is distressing a little bit. It really is. So I just want to get serious, and I take this very personally, especially as I'm just saying it as a Black man, because I want to speak because this is rampant in other circles as well. But I just want to say this as a Black man because I see, when I look at when I split the dichotomies up of who do I see in terms of political organizing and really leading a lot of these movements, whether it be specifically in electoral politics or just on the ground, active organizing versus who are the loudest voices when I see stuff around, again, political apathy, it skews towards Black women and non-binary people who are leading a lot of this work. And I say this as someone who works with a lot of Black men in these spaces as well, but these spaces are dominated by Black women and non-binary people out here. There's no way to slice it. And then it's not to say that the flip side is, at least when I'm talking about people who care about the issues but have a little bit of apathy towards politics, it's not to say that it's just they're apolitical, but I often hear things like, look, I want to get involved, but I just don't want to wait on these politicians, or I just don't trust these organizations. And to be fair, I get that because I'm not going to advocate for just waiting and taking a passive approach to electoral politics. That doesn't work. And I understand a lot of apathy and frustration and disillusionment with the larger nonprofit industrial complex. You have a lot of organizations that are grifting out here. There's no other way to put it.
Very true.
Or they are, they know they get most of their donations from, you know, white people, white led foundations. So as opposed to doing the work, or as opposed to really prioritizing, improving how they do the work with people in the community, they do stuff where they're spending a lot of time fundraising. And some of those fundraisers can be really gross, where it's like, hey, come here, black children, and tell your sob story to these rich white people. Like, I get if you grew up having to do that, especially if you were someone who was on those posters or had to go to, those dinners and share your story just to basically beg white people for money, I'd be disillusioned too. I'd be frustrated too. That said, there are a lot of organizations out here doing great work, whether it be, historical organizations like the Portland NAACP, which more recently had a big shift in leadership and has gone far more progressive in these last couple of years when it comes especially to things like the police budget and challenging any increase to it. You've got organizations like Imagine Black out here who are taking it even a step further, where it's not just defunding, but really pushing abolition. You have a lot of people on the ground out here who are trying to do the work. Be it, if you're talking about community like Black Educational Achievement Movement or BEAM, Coalition of Black Men, who are doing the work with young people specifically, but also, because you're doing this work, it's hard to also get the word out there. It's hard to cut through the noise. And especially during, campaign season, if you've been on social media, you've watched TV, you've probably seen ads for these various white men who are just throwing their, I don't need to say their names, you probably know who they are, who've just been throwing their money out there to let you know they exist. But you also notice when it comes to like these trusted community organizations, whether it be Imagine Black, whether it be Apano, be like Latino Network or anyone else, they're not talking to them. They don't have any engagement with them. They just have commercials telling you, hey, I'm a white man with a bunch of money, so I can keep showing you these commercials.
Yes.
Vote for me. And the hope is just to get, it's not, you don't have to get everyone on your side. You just got to get enough numbers in a race with like 7-8 people to get the most votes. That's it. To get through the primaries and get on to the midterms. That's it. It's a small numbers game, but it matters. When people tell you these politics don't matter, or, both parties are the same, we got to stop that. We're smarter than that. Come on. It's an intellectually lazy argument. Both parties, again, are Democrats, Republicans, white-led, white-dominated parties, and that's an issue. But when we just cede our agency, we're not winning.
Right.
These positions, at the bare minimum, we have to, one, differentiate between the marketing and the reality of politics. Politicians may show you these commercials where they market themselves as these saviors to you so they can get your vote. The reality is they control laws, they control the allocation of resources, no matter who's in that seat, Democrat, Republican, nonpartisan seat, whatever. And those resources matter. Those public services matter. Like you can't cut the police budget. You can't, even if you want to fully abolish police prisons, you need people inside to make that happen. There's no other way to slice it. And there is power that comes from these seats, and you have people. If you can get people in them, you can make it happen, and your enemies know this. Like the big thing is funny during Trump's presidency, he said a lot of, he appealed to a lot of anti-government people and a lot of sentiments, but how were they doing it? How was the administration around him doing it? By infiltrating and dismantling things from the inside while also working the outside. Like it's not a new concept. It's a very old concept, but oftentimes we, it's that cliche of cutting your nose to spite your face, where we do that with this rhetoric where we basically try and oversimplify it and say, don't get involved, don't get engaged because it doesn't matter. No, we are at a disadvantage with the power, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is when we organize and we vote in our numbers, and more than that, because it's not just voting at the midterms, it's not just voting in the primaries, it's not just voting in the general elections, it's getting involved with organizations like some of the ones I mentioned, whether they are politically involved, whether they're more grassroots community, serving organizations, whatever it is, get in there. I guarantee you, wherever you are, there are organizations led by Black people, led by brown people, doing the work that you believe in the right way. I promise you, they're there. Get involved, get to know people, work with people on the ground, and do this organizing. And one, you'll find it's a process. Anytime you're working with anyone in a group, there's going to be negotiations, there's going to be disagreements.
Yes.
It's not as fast as you might think. But also, you're going to find that some of the things you're trying to do, some of the things you're trying to advance, the conditions you're trying to change for people, it's a lot easier when you have a group organized, you have different people with different skills and different expertise and experience at your disposal, so you can make things happen. So you're not just an individual trying to fight against fully staffed, fully funded institutions. This whole thing where we're out here trying to martyr ourselves because that's the only thing we can think of, like, that's dead. It's not going to work. We know it's not going to work.
Right.
So to the people out there feeling the apathy, or they want to get in there, well, does it really matter? It's always been like this. Who cares? Just you gotta cut that apathy out.
Cut it out.
Like, just shut that apathy up. I'm sorry. Like, this isn't the time. Oh, we can have these substantive discussions, but every one of these elections, every one of these opportunities to organize and mobilize our collective power, seize on that. And not every lane is yours, and that's okay. That really is okay. But when we convince ourselves to not take advantage of these opportunities, or tell others not to take advantage of these opportunities, trust me, your enemies are. Mm-hmm. They are seizing power. They are seizing control. It's not, there are not just no consequences when we're not engaged. So again, I look at the apathy out there, and I know people are going to look and say, whatever, Bruce, you're from Lake Oswego. We don't need to listen to you. But I really hope people prove me wrong. We got primaries coming up May 17th.
Mm-hmm.
Get out there, learn about the races, learn about your local DA races, learn about your city council races, your mayor races, gubernatorial races, your Senate, Oregon Senate, House races. Learn who's out there, who's endorsed by trusted community organizations, who's pushing truly transformative policies. Also learn about the people who have some suspect money behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe question why you see certain faces and you see certain people's commercials so much, but you don't hear about others. Get engaged, If, direct electoral politics aren't your thing, but maybe you care about, working with the kids, there are plenty of organizations, again, doing that work. Get with them,
Hmm.
find them, learn from them, learn the lay of the land. And again, this is the B block. We usually have, a joke or something there and we try and laugh, but times are scary out here.
Hmm.
And my own, I live in Washington County, and our DA's race, the incumbent is pushing a tough on crime, don't let Washington County become like Portland narrative. And, I'm concerned not just for my own well being, but the youth out here,
Absolutely.
their well being. So we can't take this off. We can't fall asleep and then, 2 years later be like, man, this guy's a problem. We can nip that in the bud right now.
Hmm.
So think I'm being hard on people for the apathy, or you think, that that's not really the case? Prove me wrong. May 17th primaries are coming. Prove me wrong.